Do you remember when archaeologists first discovered what they called the ancient Greek computer? Yes, that one. It's called the Antikythera mechanism. But what exactly does it do? According to experts, this machine is an analog computer used by the ancient Greeks to predict the movements of the stars and eclipses more than 2,000 years ago. Pretty interesting. This is a complicated device with gears and wheels, made at a time when there was no electricity or digital technology. For more than a century, this has been a puzzle for historians. Only half of the machine was recovered. The other half was swallowed by the sea. The remaining gears at the back seem to be part of a calendar, but the front is completely gone. It was buried in obscurity for 2,000 years until finally the silence was broken, thanks to AI. With the help of artificial intelligence, scientists reconstructed its missing half, letter by letter, gear by gear. After thousands of scans on 82 artifact fragments, an amazing image emerged, a 3D image of the ancient computer. Yes, you heard that right. There was already a computer thousands of years ago, but how and who made it? That's what we're going to find out. It all started in the spring of 1900 in the Aegean Sea. The sea was calm until the storm came. A group of sponge divers from the island of Simi were forced to stop near a small rocky island called Antikythera between Crete and the Peloponnese. While waiting for the weather to improve, they decided to pass the time by diving. Their captain, Dimitrios Kondos, ordered his diver, Elias Stadiatos, to dive. He wore a thick canvas suit and a heavy copper helmet. He dove to a depth of about 150 feet, but what greeted him below was a scene he would never forget. Bodies that seemed entangled, like corpses trapped in the silence of the sea. Out of fear, he immediately pulled the rope and returned to the surface. He thought he had discovered something more grave, but when Captain Kondos himself went down, the truth came out. They weren't actually corpses, but bronze statues of people and horses, figures that seemed to have been left behind by time. They were lying on an ancient sunken ship. Kondos brought back to the surface a bronze arm covered in green rust, and that's where the very first underwater adventure began. An archaeological excavation in the history of Greece. The Greek Navy joined in, and within a year, they recovered marble statues, glass vessels, coins, and hundreds of broken artifacts from the seafloor. By the year 1901, the boxes of their discoveries were brought to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. Amidst all that treasure, there was one small piece that was almost ignored, a lump of rusted and decaying material, made of bronze and wood. The curators thought it was just trash. But on May 17, 1902, museum scholar Valerio Stice noticed a strange detail. A bronze gear with teeth was peeking out from under the rust. And that's where the greatest mystery in the world of archaeology began, the Antikythera mechanism. According to analysis, the ship where the mechanism was found sank during the first half of the 1st century BC, but the machine itself is said to be even older by several decades. This means it was made by the ancient Greeks more than 2,000 years ago. Now, only 82 pieces of the original device remain, which is just about 1/3 of the whole. But even though it's badly damaged, you can still see 30 gears made of pure bronze here. The largest one measures over 5 inches, with each tooth carefully shaped by hand. All of these are now on display. At the Athens Museum, they're kept inside glass and still show traces of sea salt. Those pieces became the basis for all the theories. The real evidence from which scientists are reconstructing the entire design of the machine. Fragment A has the most complete gear system, while the others have parts of circular scales and engraved letters on the metal. In the 70s, scientists used X-rays to look inside the pieces, and that's when they first saw how complex it was. But the real breakthrough came in 2005 when a British-Greek research team brought advanced imaging equipment to the museum. One of the devices they used was a 12-ton computed tomography scanner they called Blade Runner, which could scan bronze from every angle and create three-dimensional cross-sections. The other was a reflectance imaging system from Hewlett-Packard, which helped to reflect light back onto the surface of the pieces and reveal engravings that were almost invisible to the naked eye. Within 2 weeks, the scans revealed not only the hidden gears, but also thousands of ancient Greek letters that were engraved directly onto the metal more than 2,000 years ago. And for the first time, the machine spoke again in its own letters. But there was a twist. While they were examining the scans at the highest, most expensive resolution, a problem suddenly occurred. In 2005, about 25 out of almost 3,000 scan images were not recorded, and it seemed that the fragment moved slightly during the scanning. The result? Blurry areas and streaky distortions, exactly in the places where researchers needed a clear image the most. But by 2018, the team from University College London went back to the original raw data. They carefully reprocessed each slice, filled in the missing parts, and corrected the deformations. And there, the image gradually became clearer. New letters appeared, and the texts that were previously uncertain to read were finally confirmed. This is important because sometimes a single Greek letter can change the entire meaning of a cycle, or even reverse the prediction of a star. Now let's first look at the back part of this. This is the most intact part that remains. At the top, you can see a spiral dial that circles 5 times, indicating the 235 months. This is called the 19-year Metonic cycle, the measurement used by the ancient Greeks to align the lunar calendar with the seasons of the year. Beside it, there is a small subdial that counts 76 years, known as the Callippic cycle, which improves long-term accuracy. At the lower part, there is another spiral with 223 months called the Saros cycle, the famous cycle used to predict eclipses. Inside it, there is an even smaller dial that tracks the Exeligmos cycle, a 54-year triple Saros that adjusts for the extra 8 hours in each cycle to keep the timing of eclipses accurate. There is another small dial that marks the 4-year intervals of the Great Pan-Hellenic Games. And remember, this is not speculation. These functions are engraved directly onto the bronze. How does the machine speak? When you get close to the Saros spiral, you'll notice that the design is actually quite practical. Each small cell that can contain an eclipse has a symbol engraved in Greek. A letter indicates whether it is lunar or solar. The letter sigma stands for Selene, the moon, and the letter H stands for Helios, the sun. There's also a symbol that looks like an anchor, but in reality it's a combination of the Greek letters omega and rho, which means hour. After this is a letter number that indicates the exact time. There are phrases like of the day or of the night that serve as warnings about whether that eclipse will be visible in Greece or not. Under each symbol, there's an index letter that points to a longer explanation. This is the explanatory text. There it is written which direction the shadow will come from, how much of the sun or moon will be covered, and sometimes even the color of the light or darkness that can be expected. Imagine the user turning the crank, selecting a month, and suddenly the dial signals. It indicates an eclipse. With just one glance, he can read what kind of eclipse it is, what time it will happen, and where it can be seen. For a device from the 1st century before Christ was born, it's astonishing. In 2008, experts examined the remaining inscriptions on the back of the device. They discovered the complete list of month names on the Metonic dial, but to their surprise, it didn't match the well-known Athenian calendar. Instead, it came from the Corinthian family of calendars used in the western part of Greece, especially in the regions of Epirus and Corcyra. According to scholars, the sequence of the months perfectly matches the Epirote calendar, which is possibly connected to the colony called Ambracia. For them, the names of the months are like the maker's signature. It's a clue as to where the creator of this mechanism actually came from. Now let's talk about the front of the mechanism. This is the part that has almost completely disappeared. The gears and plates that were once attached to the frame are now gone. Only pieces of the cover plates remain, but fortunately, there are still inscriptions on the remaining covers. And according to the researchers, those lines are pure gold. In 2016, scientists published what they called the front cover inscription, a detailed list of planetary relations for the 5 planets known to the Greeks at that time: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The engravings on the cover of the mechanism are detailed guides. This shows how many times each planet orbits the Sun before returning to the same position in the zodiac. In short, this is the record of the exact ratios or number of rotations that the missing gears at the front of the machine need to replicate. When the inscription says that after a particular number of years, a planet has completed an exact number of revolutions or synodic cycles, that's not just a suggestion, but a specific instruction. Anyone who attempts to reconstruct the mechanism must follow all those numbers exactly. This is why it's so difficult to recreate the missing half. You can't just draw any design of the sky. The remaining gears at the back reveal what technique the ancient engineers used. The inscriptions, on the other hand, dictate which movements and cycles need to appear, and the physical space at the front of the machine determines how many gears and tubes can fit without overlapping. For the reconstruction to be accurate, 3 conditions must be met at the same time: mechanical, mathematical, and physical. This is where the real challenge began: how to reconstruct the missing front and prove that it can actually work. The process of reconstruction was not done through guesswork or luck, but through careful engineering. The researchers slowly gathered all the known facts: the number of gear teeth, the size of each one, the remaining engraved numbers and letters, as well as the bronze framework itself. They used all of those as the basis to recreate the half of the mechanism that was completely lost. Before they could restore the gears, artificial intelligence helped first. They used a model called Ithaca, created by the company DeepMind. This system can fill in the missing parts in ancient Greek inscriptions. On its own run, it achieves almost 62% accuracy. But when used alongside human historians, the accuracy of reading increases from 25% to over 70%. This is important because the numbers engraved on the cover of the machine itself are the targets that the front part needs to hit. The clearer the possibilities, the clearer the reading of the letters and numbers, the less room there is for guesses and the more precise the design becomes. The first person who truly proved that it was really possible to reconstruct the front of the mechanism was Michael T. Wright, a curator at the Science Museum in London in the early 2000s. He himself made working models by hand. He also introduced the concept of epicyclic gearing, small gears attached to arms, and they revolve around larger gears to show the uneven speeds of the planets. In addition, he also used a pin and slot mechanism, a clever design where a pin moving inside a slot speeds up and slows down the next gear gradually and naturally. Ancient Greek astronomers already knew that the speeds of the planets in the sky vary, so Wright tried to demonstrate that through his mechanical version. Wright didn't just stop at theory. He built an entire planetarium model using brass, even before the inscriptions on the cover of the machine could be fully read. Even though his layout wasn't perfect, he proved through actual construction that the front part of the mechanism could really show the movement of the planets, using only the techniques available to the ancient Greeks. From a mere possibility, it became a definite yes, and that's where the new chapter in the development of the Antikythera mechanism began. After a few years, more modern teams followed. In 2021, researchers from University College London released a reconstruction that they called the Model of the Cosmos. This is not just a simple drawing or computer animation. This is an actual design of the front part that had to follow the strict limitations of the original frame. It had to fit exactly into the space of the remaining piece, replicate the numbers engraved on the bronze, and allow the shafts and tubes to pass through the center without colliding. At the very center of the design, there is a small dome representing the Earth and a system for the Moon. Surrounding it, the planetary gear trains are wrapped around in a circular fashion, with each movement connected to a bundle of thin and intersecting tubes at the center. The researchers call this the central coaxial output, or CCO, the backbone of the entire system. Through this, multiple displays can move simultaneously without colliding inside the machine. In this reconstruction, the front of the mechanism is arranged in concentric rings, not in stacks of layered needles or pointers. It may seem like a small change, but it's very important. The circular rings help prevent the parallax problem. It's hard to read when there are many hands or markers overlapping each other. And beyond that, it matches what's written in the remaining instructions of the original machine, which say that the cosmos is arranged in circular layers. One of the smartest solutions of the UCL team was to move the first drive gears of the Sun and the 3 distant planets, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Back then, in earlier versions of the reconstruction, these gears were placed behind the large circular plate called CP in their study. But because of this, they had to make complicated brackets that were so thick, it's hard to imagine the ancient Greeks could have made them. So what the UCL team did was move the drive gears to the front. A simple move, but with a huge impact. This opened up space inside, eliminated the problem with the brackets, and made the path of each planetary gear to the central output much cleaner. At the very center, there's a fixed gear referred to in the study as gear 56, and this is where the compact epicyclic sets are attached. Small gear systems that rotate around the fixed center. You won't immediately see this kind of solution. Often you have to repeatedly lay things out on the computer, and sometimes the parts even collide with each other, until suddenly one layout just fits and works perfectly. The layout that uses the gear sharing strategy looks great. Instead of creating a separate mechanism for each planet, the UCL team allowed some systems to share gears with each other. The True Sun's gear uses the same gear 52 that Saturn also uses, and both of them are anchored to gear 56, which is the base for the 3 distant planets. Meanwhile, Mars and Jupiter share gear 64. This is how efficient the use of space is, because if your internal measurement is only 1/10 of an inch, every additional gear could cause a collision. With this approach, the entire design became thin but effective. Aside from this, the new model needs to respect the physical framework of the original mechanism, especially the large drive wheel with 4 spokes and the pillars around it. Those pillars used to hold 2 plates, a rectangular strap hanging on the short pillars, and the round CP plate on the longer pillars. The UCL team used a sandwich-like design. Between the large wheel and the strap, they inserted 9 layers of gears within a 0.59-inch space. That's where the mechanism of the mean sun drive, lunar node, and the bosses of the inner planet trains are contained. Between the strap and the CP plate, they squeezed most of the gears for the sun and the outer planets into a gap that's only 9.7 millimeters, or about 0.38 inches. And the most surprising thing is that the strap itself is tilted by 11 degrees compared to the spokes. This isn't a mistake, it's luck. Because of that wheel, there was enough space for the mechanisms of Mercury and Venus to pass through without hitting the nearby gears. Because of that wheel, there was enough room for the mechanisms to pass through. It's almost like the work of a watchmaker, very compact but precise, measured to just fractions of an inch. One of the most satisfying moments in the reconstruction was discovering a small block on the spoke with a mysterious hole in the middle. For many years, no one could explain what it was for. But in the design of 2021, that mystery was finally solved. The small black and white moon ball in front of the mechanism needs to receive input from the sun and the moon to display its correct phase or face. But since the front of the mechanism was built in the form of circular rings, it wasn't practical to repeat the entire calculation of the sun just to operate the moon. So the UCL team made a clever shortcut. They went through a bar attached to the pierced block on spoke D, which serves as the shortest connection. This was to transfer the data from the central gear to the lunar phase device. In an instant, what was once a useless block became a bracket with a clear purpose. The mechanism for Venus, on the other hand, provided another aha moment. There is a piece called Fragment D that preserves a disc attached to a gear with a shaft that changes shape from square to round as it passes through the plate. That gear has 63 teeth and only 3 are missing. In the UCL model, that disc has the offset pin used in the pin and slot mechanism to create the uneven motion of Venus. The plate serves as the bearing surface at the correct height, so it fits perfectly. The fit is so precise that researchers believe Fragment D itself is the center of Venus's epicyclic system. Even if you don't fully understand what Venus's role is in the dial, the point is clear. The remaining pieces of bronze are positioned exactly where they need to be inside the mechanism. There's another similar breakthrough with spoke B, where there's a large bearing that also went unexplained for a long time. In the model made in 22, it was discovered that it actually supports a 4-gear epicyclic set for the lunar nodes, the line where the moon's orbit crosses the sun's path. The bearing matches the size of the teeth, and it's exactly in the position needed for the node mechanism. There is also something remarkable about the simple honesty in the number of gears. On the back of the machine, 35 gears have been recovered from the original. In the front, the 2021 model added 34 new gears for the entire Cosmos system. In total, that's 69 gears, enough to fit into the remaining bronze frame, and to record exactly the number and position of each one. Underneath all of that, the designers kept each planetary train thin and efficient. The sun only uses 3 gears, while the distant planets like Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn each have 7 gears in their epicyclic setup. The inner planets, Mercury and Venus, use 5 gears with pin and slot followers, creating the unique stop-and-go motion seen in their actual movement in the sky. There are times when a mechanism needs to pass through the center of a fixed gear, so they used a pierced block and crossbar to get across, similar to what was used in the mean sun bar on spoke D. These are small but critical solutions that you often only notice when you're actually building the mechanism, not just on paper. The reason why the 2021 reconstruction is credible is because it can now be tested. In 2025, another research team tested this model using computer simulations. They used triangular tooth shapes, the sharp design of gear teeth commonly seen in modern replicas. Then, they deliberately added small errors between the gears to see what would happen. The result was a warning. The shape of the teeth wasn't a big problem. But if there's even a slight mistake in the spacing between the gears, it can get stuck and stop working over time. This doesn't mean that the 2021 model is wrong, but this opened up even bigger questions. What kind of teeth could the ancient Greeks cut? How accurate were they in measuring? How clean and smooth was the bronze they used? What's important here is that this is no longer just legend or speculation. Now we're talking about real engineering. Measurable problems like friction, space, and long-term wear, things that can be tested, not just imagined. And now that the reconstruction works on paper or in simulation, we can now ask the bigger question. What did the ancient Greeks actually see when this machine came to life before them? The first thing you'd notice is the center, a small dome representing the Earth. Around it, there's a pointer that tracks the position of the moon as it moves through the symbols of the zodiac. Next to the pointer is a marble-sized ball. Half of it is black and half is white. Every day it slowly rotates to show the phases of the moon. When it's black, it's a new moon. When it's white, it's a full moon. And every shadow in between matches the days of the month. But the moon is just the beginning. Around it are 6 thin rings. Each one holds one of the celestial bodies followed by the Greeks: Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Outside all of that, you can see the wide ring of the zodiac divided into 12 symbols. And on the outermost part, a calendar ring shows the days of the year. Each planet has a small bead fixed on its own ring. The Sun has a golden bead with its own pointer. As described in ancient inscriptions, a cosmos arranged in circular rings with small spheres. And at the very end, a thin date ring serves as a calendar. If you want to know the date, that's where you look. And if you want to see where the planets are in the sky, it's simple. Just look at the moving beads. This is not speculation. The inscriptions discovered in 2016 describe it exactly, here on the entire front of the mechanism. And these are what the 2021 model followed. It simultaneously displays 9 things: the moon, lunar nodes, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and the date on the calendar. The moon is the center of everything. Its pointer shows where it is in the zodiac as well as the age of the moon. How many days have passed since the last new moon? As Cicero said, the moon always follows the sun day after day on the machine's dial. The sun, on the other hand, has a golden bead that moves around the zodiac as the year goes by. When it's in Aries, it's spring. In Cancer, it's summer. In Libra, it's autumn. And in Capricorn, it's winter. With just one glance, you know what season it is. Each planet has a story on its own ring. There are marks for conjunctions, oppositions, and elongations. Where Mercury and Venus become the brightest in the sky. There is also a unique dragon hand, a long pointer that tracks the moon's nodes, the points it passes through when it crosses the path of the sun. When it meets the sun's mark on the dial, it means the time of the eclipse has come, a cycle that repeats every 18.5 years. It also works as a calendar. There are 2 fixed scales, the zodiac and the calendar. There are letters around it that refer to the parapegma panels, ancient records of stars used by farmers and sailors as guides for the seasons. There are 42 of these records throughout the year. It's simple to use. Set the date, turn the handle, and you'll immediately see the positions of the sun, moon, and planets. If the dragon hand is within the mark, it's eclipse season. And if you want to know which star will rise, just look at the letter on the dial and find it on the parapegma panel. There are also colors so you won't get confused. The bead is gold for the sun, blue for Venus, turquoise for Mercury, and a small black and white ball for the moon. With just one glance, you can read the entire sky. Saturn is the slowest. Jupiter is slightly faster. Mars shines red when it's opposite the sun. And Venus and Mercury are the brightest at dusk. In the end, the Antikythera mechanism shows that thousands of years before modern technology, the Greeks already understood how to represent the movement of the heavens, using only gears, wheels, and human ingenuity.